I was the trainer, and now I'm the director of education and training. And so we have 3 or 4 people that we can count on that work on our PE trainings and are working with our presidents as well. And then we have a whole team that works with PEARLS, which is the Professional Rotary Leadership Seminar, which is much like RLI to other clubs or districts. So having that team and people you can rely on was huge. And creating a 3-year appointment also was very, very helpful in that, because there's consistency in the trainings and knowing what we need to improve and working together as a unit.
May I ask, Barda, how many people are on that team?
I would say there's probably floating 6 and 7 in and out. There are 3 or 4 core members, and then we bring people in as we need them.
Cindy, Renee, are you using a team approach too?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and how many people, Cindy?
You know, we lovingly call ourselves T3 because we help put out the headaches of the district. I'm just kidding. But we did create a name for ourselves, and we call ourselves T3. And we meet regularly with the D line, the DG line, sorry, from the district governor to the district governor elect, and we meet weekly. So it's a collaborative effort, because we meet weekly, we just say, what do we need to get done before next week? And we've done a lot more things, tiny bit at a time. You know, it's kind of that ongoing drip system, as opposed to, oh my goodness, we have this huge project and you have to get it done in a month. And found that works. And it's the collaboration that works, because everybody knows what everybody else is doing.
Nice. Yeah, it's that communication piece we talked about, isn't it? Yeah. Renee, you've used a team as well?
Yeah, so we have our action plan team is actually the G line. There's 5 people on the committee. So I'm new to the committee as of, I don't know, several weeks ago. But what we've done is, because there's 4 different components to that action plan, then each of the committees, so the Learning Development Committee, the PI committee, the TRF committee, membership committee, they all have a portion of that action plan. So the Learning and Development Committee, we meet as every other week. And then I think the rest of the committees meet on a monthly basis.
Okay, excellent. Leanne, you want to take the next question?
I do. Cindy, I know that you have worked within your district to develop a program to increase the skills of your facilitators. So this is kind of a sidebar to some of the things we've been talking about with design development, but how did that fit into your plan? And why did you think it was important to put resources into developing your facilitators?
It was because in our district, we realized it's very, very spread out. And we only had a handful of facilitators at the time. And this was, I think started this 1.5 years ago, and identified that we wanted more facilitators. So I created a facilitation training, which was supposed to be done in person. And it launched February of last year. I got to do 2. And then COVID hit. So since then, I have really converted it onto how to facilitate on Zoom in particular. Different skills for facilitating, as well as using Zoom to its optimum, which you guys have done here. And it's just helping the district be able to do things like Rotary Learning Institute, Rotary Leaders Institute, whatever we've called them both, as well as multi-year planning, or what used to be called visioning, or we have developed a multi-year planning process that the facilitators help us facilitate. And we have converted that to Zoom, and it works extremely well. So had a lot of fun with that. And so it's just kind of evolved, where now what we've done is we're doing Zoom training once a month on a certain topic for the entire district. Anybody can join us. It's 1 hour, it's facilitated, and we call it best practices. And so we have things like member engagement best practices. And we do similar to this. We bring everybody together and we put them in breakout rooms, and then we join at the end and share everybody's ideas and best practices. And we're getting more than 50 people at a time, and it's become popular. So
wow,
just kind of trying new things.
Yeah, so that really what that's doing, and in addition to a strong design plan for your learning and development within your district, it was important to put the assets to pull that off, and that was your facilitators. Yeah.
And now our facilitators practice at our chat sessions in the breakout rooms, and it just works really well to help them get involved.
Great, thank you.
And I'd like to pose this to Renee first. What what are you looking when you start looking towards that perfect world post-COVID? What would you think that you would continue to do virtually, and what would you move to a live piece? Because we know that people want to do both, or we're thinking people want to do both.
Yeah, so we're asking ourselves that question right now. We will continue to do some of the monthly webinars as webinars. The Vibrant Club webinar went really well virtually. We will do a hybrid of the Rotary Spring Training event, but we're also right now working on combining the Rotary Spring Training event with what has been called in the past district conference. So combining the two so that there's a learning component and a celebration component. So we're talking about how we can make that both virtual and live as well. So we're really in the planning stage of what might work and what won't work, but being willing to step out of the proverbial box and test it. But being mindful of how people learn. So being very intentional about the different learning styles, the different needs of individuals. Specifically as Rotarians, we're relational beings, and realizing that we have to have that camaraderie there as well. So short answer, we're evolving. There will be many opportunities for both kinds of learning, both virtual and in person.
Marta, do you have anything to add to that? Your thoughts?
So we held already a hybrid PE retreat. The district governor-elect really wanted to do something hybrid, so she did that. We found a facility that would handle a good number of people, and then we had Zoom facilitators as well. So they had a big screen that had Zoom on it. They had people in the audience, all within social distancing and protocols, and it went over really, really well, both online. I mean, the online people felt like they had a little group going, and the chat box was going hot and heavy, and they would ask questions. They would be answered live. They were acknowledging back and forth. It worked really, really well. So I can see that happening in the future. I think there are things that we learned from that. We are holding 2 fall sessions. So the PE retreat that they did hybrid was more inspirational and informational. And we're doing 2 fall training sessions. We've completed one completely Zoom. The second one will be Zoom. And then I think that we're going to go back. We do a midterms in January for anyone in the presidential line, and then they break into their classes. And I suspect that's going to end up being a hybrid event of some sort as well. So I love the idea of the monthly Zooms, Cindy. That I wrote that down because we started doing that with the presidential line when we went into lockdown. We did a monthly presidential line Zoom, and we just came up with topics. The training team started coming up with topics, but I like the idea of continuing that and just having it open to everybody.
And the name best practices is a real in itself,
it's inviting,
it's welcoming. Yeah.
It very much so. So I appreciate that. But I definitely see a hybrid going forward, even once we come out of all of this. I definitely think our district is also very wide, long distances, which I know a lot of us are here. And I think that being able to just hop on a Zoom like we are tonight, Zoom for an hour and a half and go back to your families, I don't see a need to make people drive on a Saturday anymore. I really just don't.
So for some, depending on the information that you want to process with the folks, the decisions that want to be made, you can make that conversation of, well, this could be a 2-hour session, so we're not going to spend 4 getting there.
Exactly.
It's one pragmatic example. It's been, Cindy, I think if I remember right, you've got a fairly large geographical region too.
Yeah, we do. And, Zoom's given us the opportunity to come closer together, which is kind of cool.
I agree.
Yeah. But the one thing that you can't replace is that camaraderie.
Yes.
And so, the Rotary Learning Institute is a really special time. And I know it's been created, some do it 3 days, some do it 2 days. And what I foresee, you asked about what to change for the future. What I
Mhm.
foresee is doing a month ahead of time, doing one weekly session each day, and then do a 1 day where they actually get together and get that
Mhm.
camaraderie and be able to socialize and do
Interesting.
the hands-on stuff. But the stuff that you can learn on Zoom, do it that way so that you save people time and money traveling.
Great.
So a question for any one of you that wishes to answer it. Last week we talked about preparing to have that conversation with your district governor elect nominee, looking at learning and development design going forward, based around the 4 priorities of the action plan. Have any of you considered what budgetary items that you're going to need to do that? We've talked about Zoom. Do you need more Zoom links? Are you going to get, some GoToWebinar? Do you need any equipment to start doing your own video production kinds of things? Does that come into the conversation at all?
For our district, I know we have a lot of that equipment and we already do quite a bit of that in other areas.
Mhm.
So I don't think we need more equipment, but we did go back and purchase the higher accessibility to Zoom, larger numbers. And they actually, I think we now have 3 licenses and one is specifically for the training team, which is nice. And they bought the robust package. So I think that definitely was a consideration and it's been used and will continue to be used, I believe. So I think the cameras and the video, microphones, speakers, we've had that. We use that quite a bit, both in our district and in the zone and at PETS, quite frankly. So I know that we're covered in that regard.
Mhm. Cindy or Renee, anything to add to that?
I think one of the things that, because our district is so big, it has saved money on travel. And so investing in some things, when we know that there's going to be a large audience on Zoom, we invest in the higher audience one. And you can do that by the month if you want. So you don't have to spend it all year long. But if you have certain events, you just plan for it. And they've budgeted for that, I believe. But
So that's on the district side, nothing on your committee side then that you would need to consider.
not on our committee side at this point, no.
So we were asked, our committee, the Learning Development Committee, was asked to put together a budget that was taking into account the different forms or the different platforms, both in person and virtual and hybrids. So we were able to participate in that, looking forward to the future of what it might look like.
Mhm.
I'm going to piggyback with a follow-up question because I noticed a comment from Debbie Dawkins using high-profile speakers that charge fees. Have you done anything? Have you done anything outside of your districts or linking with other districts for speakers or training participants or training leaders? Not yet. That's okay. But it's just wondering. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the plan for this coming Rotary Spring Training event.
Yeah.
Names are changing all over the place. So there are plans for this coming event to have some better known speakers.
Great.
And I know that at the club level, some of the clubs have actually done that, which is really cool.
Mhm.
And sharing within the club, within different areas of the district. So, through Zoom, it's opened more doors.
What about resources? How about either the Learning Center, RI Learning Center, or other places that you're finding resources to utilize for your training?
We're sending folks to the Learning Center, and we started that in the spring with the district training assemblies. We asked them to go to their specific course first, depending upon what position they held in the club, treasurer, secretary, president-elect, president, and then come to our training. So, and we sent the link, said it a couple of times in emails, and said, and we will be assuming that you have this training prior to attending our session. So and that worked pretty well. I think most of them attended.
And what kind of courses? I'm extrapolating. It's probably a more basic info or basic. What kinds of courses are you sending them to?
It was like the secretaries to the secretary course, treasurers to the treasurer course. We didn't get down into the avenues of service at our district training assembly this year, just because of the whole trying to get on Zoom and figure out how to make it happen.
Right. Renee, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm a big one that I believe in using your resources and not recreating the wheel. So one of the things that we did, well, that was supposed to have been implemented this last DTA, which is going to be Rotary Spring Training event, was we used the DTA curriculum to for our officers and committee chairs. So for the informational sessions for them. And then we had a separate track that was more topic oriented. So as we're planning this year's Rotary Spring Training event, we will do something similar where we will use some of the materials from the Learning Center for the job specific roles. And then we will do more topic specific, like Toastmasters, that kind of thing. So that'll be more topic oriented. But we definitely will use resources out there, not only from the Rotary Resource Center, but also from other venues that are out there. So I'm from the YMCA movement. So I use some of my YMCA material that I adapt for Rotary. We have another gentleman on the team that is from the American Red Cross. So he's been able to take some of his material and adapt it. So definitely looking at some of the best resources and tailoring it to Rotary.
Cindy, anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say the Rotary Learning Institute, because we can't do it in person right now. We have another monthly thing that we're doing called RLO, which is Rotary Learning Online. And so we take one module, and that's a 90-minute session that we offer to whoever wants. And we just started that in September, and
Right.
And we just finished foundation last night.
What kind of feedback are you getting?
Good. It's funny because the chats have been more popular than the Rotary Learning Institute. I don't know why, or the Rotary Learning Online. But I think it's because we haven't had the exciting topics yet.
Okay. Leanne?
Well, to any of you, as you're creating this library of all the recordings, whether it's your online learning specific to roles or specific to topics, speakers, et cetera, what are you doing with that library? Do you have plans to reuse that and see that as your own in-district resource? And how are you archiving that, keeping track of it, getting it out to your committee chairs, making it available to at the club level?
So we're in the process of updating, and filming things, updating it, and then we have a resource on our district website, and we've been putting all of our trainings on the district website underneath the governor's year. So depending upon which governor it is, which is a good resource for the trainers, but it's also a good resource for anyone who didn't get the class, wasn't able to attend. So we've always kept the PowerPoints and the learning handouts there. And now we're starting to upload the Zoom videos there as well, so they can access them. So we're in the process of trying to figure out, kind of like you guys did with RLI, trying to figure out how we can make Pearls go online. And Master Pearls more than anything, not so much the Intro to Rotary, that we've got covered. So we're trying to figure out that piece of it. And then we're about to record just a static is not the right word, but sort of a template, secretary, treasurer, president-elect spring training session. And then also for the avenues of service. So that's what we're working on in the background, to have those ready so that we can launch those, and then just have the incoming chairs attend, and they're there during the video, and then they can answer questions and respond and show them that they're the district resource. So we're trying to make that more robust on the district website right now.
Cindy or Renee?
Yeah, same thing. We have a resources on our website. All of the learnings from our chats and from everything and our spring training go on there. And there's a plethora of videos on there as well.
Same thing.
Renee? Same, yeah. So a curious question more than anything, is that the responsibility of the learning and development team that you take care of, or do you have an IT or a communications team that maintains that for you?
Communications.
So it's the learning development team. We're blessed to have a young Rotaractor who's very adept at that. So she's actually been the person to make it happen.
That's actually, that was sort of my experience behind the question, Renee, is that, that's some specific talent. So how do you have redundancies in that? So it's not just one person that's doing that. Yeah.
So in the couple moments we have left, I'm going to ask the the question. So take a moment to think about this. And then when you're ready, just go forward. What haven't we asked you that you feel we need to know that would be helpful for us to hear? Ahas, something that you've figured out, warnings, threats.
Run the flag. Yeah.
Yeah. Cindy?
For me, it might be how do they use the information going forward, and how do you know if they've used it? So I'm a big one for creating follow-ups. And so we've created with our multi-year planning, which is visioning from before. One of the things we do is called a multi-year planning summit quarterly. So anybody who has taken the visioning from a session a month ago, we encourage them to show up and tell us what they've implemented and how their successes are, and to show up quarterly to keep us informed. So it's a bit of that accountability piece. So trying to build accountability as well as in a good way, accountability in a good way, and follow up is the biggest thing, because it's great to learn something, but if you don't use it, it just sits on the shelf.
Marta or Renee? Something?
One of the things that came out of all of this for us is we had an e-club who we were trying to bring into trainings and not doing it very successfully. And a year ago, the district training assembly, we were able to have them in on the main session, the two sessions that occurred in the main room. So we recorded it and they were able to come in. But being an online club and the president was in Turkey, we were struggling, honest to goodness, we were struggling. And now COVID hits, and all of a sudden they feel like a regular club. They're on every meeting, they're participating. I mean, so for us, it was a wonderful aha. And now this is how we include them, right? So that was pretty exciting for us. Cool. The other funny thing that I found was that our district, our DGE, who wanted to go to Zoom a year ago, now that everything's on Zoom, she hates it. She doesn't want to do it. She's the one that forced the hybrid retreat. So it's kind of funny how people have changed and the turn of events, what it's created. But the biggest thing for me as a trainer was I was very excited that we could include our e-club on everything now. And that was pretty special.
Nice. Renee, anything to add?
I think the biggest learning opportunity is how to be engaging with Zoom in the virtual world. Not when you're doing a live facilitation or a live workshop, you have all the energy in the world that you can spend on your audience and create that enthusiasm and that motivation. And it's learning how to do the same thing in the virtual environment. Yeah. So however we go forward in the future, we've got to be mindful of that, because we lose people. Yeah, we might get more people to come into the meeting because it's virtual, but we've got to create excitement and motivation and energy somehow in that Zoom world. So as we continue to build out those plans, I think that would be something I'd be mindful of.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. Really appreciate you sharing some of your insights, your thoughts, your experiences. Cindy, Renee, Marta, round of applause for you all. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And Leanne, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to brim with ideas and thoughts that we could use back in our settings as well.
Absolutely. I was taking some good notes. Thank you all.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's start looking at reimagining training and preparation in our districts. You are creating unique approaches and alternatives in light of our experiences to date, including the experiences you've had before the pandemic. Half of you are new to your position. More than half of you are using a committee approach with membership from a variety of roles, variety of audiences, as we were talking about. 75% of you have a professional experience in training adults. And for the purposes tonight, we're considering Rotarians adults. We just want you to know that. 78, that was a joke. 78% of you have used your skills to provide training in Rotary settings. Half of you are providing assistance in a district session at PETS. So let's tap those experiences. Let's tap each other's expertise. You will recall that last week we looked at specific audiences for training. This included president-elects, assistant governors, club leaders, district leaders. Tonight we're returning to breakout sessions, and in each session, you and your colleagues will develop a model training based on some prompts for this audience. You'll reimagine. And thank you, Rosemary, for sending that form off in advance. So one of the quotes I have for you from Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And Richard Cushing said, always plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. So there's no rain for most of us. There's a snow for a few of us. The real purpose here is to focus on the actions that you will potentially take or could potentially take with a given audience. The fun is, after you've done this in your breakout group, we'll have 3 models to combine, adjust, adapt, and consider in your work with district leaders. It's always about actions. Leanne, did you want to add any of your thoughts to that?
No, I was impressed you were quoting the Archbishops of Boston. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Very good, very good.
A surprise, yeah.
Okay, remember, it's always about actions, not the plan. And in that quotation field, as Taylor Swift said, just because you made a good plan doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But remember, if plan A fails, you have 25 other letters in the alphabet. All right, let's go to the task.
Michael, how long can you tell us beginning and time frame so people have a sense as how long we have?
Sure, we should be done within 4 hours. No, we are going to get together in these 3 groups, and we're going to do a time check around 15 minutes. We're hoping to be concluded at 20, but we're leaving a little time there to see how that conversation goes. That's a really good time check, Rosemary. So figure we will make a contact with the facilitators after 15 so we can see how that's coming and should we bring it back together at that point. Okay. If you need that extra 5, we'll be there. Leanne and I will not be in a group. We will bounce back and forth to groups. You'll see us appear or disappear potentially. Okay. Sarah, Rosemary, and Brad will each serve as facilitators. You've seen the tool to use. Mm-hmm. I think you have that as a slide also, Bill, just for a quick moment. Slide 9.
No, slide 9.
Yes. No worries.
You caught me by surprise here.
What we've done with these groups, by the way, is we're going to have 3 groups. So we're going to put president-elects and AGs together with Rosemary, club chairs and leaders with Sarah, and district chairs and leaders with Brad. Okay? So and the point here is to generate, reimagine, go out, and just make it happen. So we're not worried as much about the label of the district chair or leader or the club chair. Just looking at those audiences. And you can see some of the questions are priorities, outcomes, barriers that we may want to address, added value, etc. Or in other words, why it's important. Anything, let me make one comment on that. When you go into your groups, your leader, your facilitator will select a recorder, ask for a recorder. And when the report out happens at the end, the facilitator and the recorder will do that together. So the recorder can record however they wish to record, and then we'll repeat out verbally and take notes, and you'll see that happen as it goes. Anything I missed, Leanne?
Nope, I think that's it. I just encourage all of you. I think the strength in this exercise is really getting into it and developing some very specific, drill down a little bit. Don't stay at the high level.
Okay. Any questions from the facilitators before we move forward? Are you ready to beam up? All right. Bill, let's make those groups and away we go.
I think we're pretty much all back.
Okay. So we're going to have Sarah is going to join us along with Wendy Fisher. And Leanne, you want to talk about what's going to happen? Or what's going to happen is Bill will actually take notes for you, Sarah and Wendy, as they will for all the groups. And you can get those bullets in. So take it away, Leanne.
Right. Thank you. And welcome, you guys. And thank you for doing that for your group, Wendy. So Sarah, your group had club chairs and leaders. So I want to start off with, and we'll give you, 3 to 4 minutes to kind of give us some bullets there of what came out during your session. So asking that first question, what were the critical needs for your club chairs that your group talked about? Wendy?
I have so many notes. I've got to try and go through this fast. So we did talk about how there is a difference between actually your technical role as a chair and learning how to do that. And then also there's a behavioral role as far as working with people and how to handle them and their behaviors. And we have to remember that we're working with volunteers. And so that's really important. We talked about how this group there's kind of like a senior management will be your district people, your middle management will be your presidents. And really these are the lower level management when we're talking about chairs. And so a lot of them are just incoming and they're needing leadership training because they're at that entry level position. And we do need to focus on specific training. Certainly like the secretary and the treasurer have very specific things that they need to do in order to make sure the club functions properly. But there are soft skills as well. I kind of said, I guess that's kind of the tech role versus behavioral role. So soft skills versus technical skills. And we said that sometimes this can be the hardest group to engage. And so trying to figure out how we can potentially get experts to go in to meet this group on their own terms in their own time, rather than trying to get them to come to something and attend something. So those were.
So that way, for clarity then, Wendy, that would be the barrier that you would need to overcome. So when you're designing your plan specifically for a club treasurer, for a club secretary, it might be that you need to go to them in order to give them the skills that they need. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
So
and looking at then what's the timeline for setting this up? That last question there with this group, your foundation chairs, your membership chairs, your treasurers, your club leadership.
So we said that in general, we do have sessions that are a district assembly type of thing in the spring, but that there's a little bit of a fine line between making sure it's easy for them to get engaged while not being a burden. So we don't want to put too much on them too early, but we want to make sure that they have the information and can get going and up to speed. So that's one of the things. Some of the clubs do start inviting chairs to board meetings so that they can start prepping a little bit. That way it's still a little bit on their own terms if they go or not, but at least they start getting into that role.
And who can help with that? I mean, because I happened to be in the room when you were talking about this. This is oftentimes a real challenge for someone who takes the role as club treasurer. They're just like, I'm going to take care of the books, I'll collect the dues, and they don't feel compelled to attend some of the wider district training offerings for them as a lead. So who can help you overcome that?
We talked quite a bit about mentorship and how that really is an important should be an important part of the whole process. And, having the people that have been in the position mentor the incoming people. We talked about how RI used to have really great manuals, but then they stopped making them and kind of changed how they're doing it. But that those manuals used to be very helpful, and that is something we could still do. So it wouldn't necessarily be a specific person of who could help. But if we had kind of a little handbook that went down year to year from person to person, so that there was an ongoing record of what's happened in the past and how the position has been filled and what they've done. So
kind of walk that out for me then in your position as a trainer or coordinator, how would you then facilitate that happening at the club level so that they were able to develop such manual, if you will, that was very specific for their club that could be passed on, that would in fact help those specific officers and chairs in that club? Did you get that far?
We didn't answer that question specifically. Okay. I mean, my input would be that would certainly be something that we could talk with everyone about when they're having any kind of training, whether it's at a district assembly or some other type of training,
Mhm.
and just start the discussion of it's really important to keep track of what you do and be able to pass it on to the next person. You know, continuity is so important and really helpful.
Right. Thank you. So Sarah, you were listening to all that. Did you hear any of our 3 C's there that Wendy didn't speak to, the communication, the collaboration, and the consistency that you would like to pull out? Have
I
built?
think one of the neat things the group talked about in terms of collaboration was the idea of looking at a continuum and like how do you encourage people who have not agreed to the role to start exposing them to it and giving them a better understanding of the role, and kind of that idea of succession planning into mentorship and succession planning. So I think expanding upon that a little bit was I thought it was a great way to be looking at these positions.
Great. Thank you.
We-
Thank both of
We
you.
also talked a little bit about the importance of fellowship in these roles, that, you know, if we can bring all the, you know, whatever the position is, the community service directors together, that when they have just a chance to chat and talk, kind of like way we do as district trainers sometimes, you learn ideas and you're like, oh, wow, that's great. I'd never thought of that. And so a lot of that is just very, very natural if given the opportunity, that they will be developing things on their own or sharing ideas.
Great. Thank you. Michael, back to you.
Yeah, and Sarah and Wendy, and to our other facilitators and our recorders, if you would send those on to me, any notes that you have, and I'll work over them a little bit, so you don't have to worry if it's done as what I would, if I were doing it, it'd be scribbling, and I'll put that into the format and send it out to everyone. And I'm putting my email in the chat box right now. So we go to Rosemary and Claire. So talk to us on these different points, and you may go up and down the list, or you may, however, what came out for you in terms of the needs for club chairs and leaders?
This is presidents-elect and AGs.
Excuse me, presidents-elect and AGs. Sorry, my bad. So,
okay, so some of the things that we talked about are making sure up front that we let them know what the expectations are across the board, and that includes communication expectations. We talked about, you know, the importance of job descriptions, you know, with clear roles and responsibilities, especially for the AGs, so that and identifying where people are related to role-related competencies is really important as well, especially with the PEs, because you could have somebody who's newer to Rotary who doesn't really have a lot of experience in that, or you could have somebody who's maybe on their second time around as president or more, who's going to be in a different place. Okay. We talked about the fact that the PEs will tend to go through a continuum of learning, you know, about leadership and the competencies, whereas, you know, and we set that up, but do we do the same thing for the AGs? And we also need to think about if we have AGs as a multi-year role in our respective districts, that there can be some impact to the AGs in terms of the style of the district governor or the personality of the district governor and how he or she would deal with that. You know, let's see. And we talked about,
No, go ahead.
We talked about working with the AGs and the PEs as a smaller group, because then they can build that community that the prior reporter was talking about as a team in their area, so that they have resources to help them and feel that they know that there's a plan for them. And then, you know, we can also use the Learning Center as a baseline of knowledge in terms of using that as kind of a jumping off place in terms of how do we help them understand, you know, what their role is going to be or what the expectations are being. Also understanding what the role is, but what the role is not. We talked about that in a couple of the different sections, especially for the PEs, because, you know, they need to understand what's the role of the club president, and explaining how the training that we're providing links back to the 4 strategic actions and how it all fits together into kind of a mosaic in terms of how we present the information. Some of the barriers that we talked about, does the training team have a specific budget, or are you just trying to figure out where you can grab money from somebody else who didn't use all of theirs? Or are you specifically budgeting for training? We talked about one of the barriers that has been removed because of COVID is distance. So for some of us that are in more geographically dispersed districts, then we can use Zoom. So Zoom is a blessing and a curse all at the same time. But it also gives us the opportunity to recruit from a wider range of facilitators. We talked about, who can help, so we can get an expert from out of town. Somebody, for some reason, the trainer from the next district over knows everything in the entire world when maybe I don't know everything, just because profit in your own land kind of an idea. And we can recruit from non-Rotarians. We can leverage Toastmasters to provide a lot of the skills that we need to look at. Again, we talked about it, but we also talked about having to keep a balance because of Zoom fatigue. So again, the Zoom is a pro, but Zoom is a con. And so how do we make sure that we keep the balance there? Okay. And in terms of the communication needed, we talked about trying to set expectations for the PEs in particular. A couple of us have given them a calendar as of July 1 that has varying levels of details in terms of what to expect over the course of the year as they ramp up to become club president, what to do, what month by month, and then a lot of different touch bases and different supports, different expectations, different frequencies. And those were, that pretty much sums up what we covered on our team.
Great, excellent. And anticipating that you're going to send these notes along to me, Claire and Rosemary. Anything, Rosemary, that you would add that struck you?
I just want to add just a little bit about the monthly schedules. There was also the schedule that was about how to learn, your learning the expectations of what you would be starting to learn about in July, and then what would be happening in the months following, to build your knowledge as a president-elect about what it is you do need to do.
Great. Well, thank you, Claire. Thank you, Rosemary. And we're going to move on now to Brad and Marta.
Yes, we focused on district chairs and leaders, and Marta did our recording. Why don't you take it away, Marta?
So we were looking at the priorities. We started with the priorities, obviously, and the first one was an objective assessment of in-person training, sort of what the people who are participating, what kind of training they've had already, and what do they bring to the table at that point in time. And then cross-training and collaboration was really important, and looking at their skill sets to do their job and how their communication skill sets interlaced in there. So they may have skill in membership, but they may not have skill in training for membership. So just sort of looking at how all those play in together. And then an organizational continuity identification. So what they were talking about is if there's a manual and what spreadsheets and different information that you use to do your job, so that there's some continuity in that as well. So looking at the identification of documentation forms, spreadsheets that are used currently, what the clear understanding of what those documents are, how best they're used, and then also passing those along to the next person. So that's where the continuity comes in. What are the intended outcomes? To prepare the chairs as best we can for the district to do their job in the district for that year. To provide a resource of information in their area, and then to assist them with their content and delivery. And then the new one for this year is their Zoom communication techniques and skills. So that was the intended outcomes that we came up with for the, yes?
Keep going.
Okay, for the sorry, I lost my train here. The potential barriers to address, and this was both a barrier and a value added, and that was the outside training influencers.
Mhm.
So when you look at people coming in from the district, from the zone, from RI, and they're sending information to your membership chair or your foundation chair, and you're trying to work with them as well. And, you know, sometimes that's a barrier in that there's information coming in, and how does that work in with the training and what you're trying to prepare. But on the other side, it's also value added in that they're bringing specific topic information to that person. They're subject matter experts. So the trainers don't have to be experts in all areas. They just have to be the experts in coordinating the training and making sure that everyone is trained, and that they're communicating with those people. So it's a value added, and it's also a barrier in just making sure the coordination is happening and that they're getting the information from those subject matter experts in the right timing in order to produce their own trainings. So that was 2 there. And then what's the value added? We talked about that. And also with Zoom, we can bring in people from Zone, from RI for those trainings as well, which
Much easier. Yeah.
Right. And then who can help? The collective wisdom of subject matter experts, District, Zone, and RI International. So now it's sort of, everyone can help. You can call on anyone now, not just the people that are local, or maybe from next door zones who'd be willing to travel into your zone for a training. Really the world is at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the added communication needed and timeline to coordinate with outside and inside influencers in the district, both virtual and in person? So it's really working, deciding what you need and then going after it, and then making sure that all those timelines coordinate. As I mentioned before, making sure that the membership subject matter experts are providing that information to your membership chair in time for them to conduct their trainings for the district staff, and then also for the clubs. I think that covers it. If there's anybody else.
That's great. And
Great, Marta, well done.
Brad,
So
did you want to add it? I'm sorry, Leanne, my bad.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Brad, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Well, I think she did. She covered it all. But there was one point I kind of want to emphasize that was made, and that is through this opportunity of taking the district leaders and helping them, if you will, cross-communicate and train to break down some of the silos. We've done that at many levels in Rotary, of having the membership team do foundation training, the foundation team maybe doing public image, and more holistic understanding of what all are doing.
Right.
So that we are coordinating it with the clubs who only think of Rotary as one thing, right? So that piece and that collaboration horizontally is kind of important. But it was clear to us that at this level, there's so many other influences. The district trainer's best thing is to act as a funnel of information and try to get them to work with one another and to help them launch a plan so that there is a plan, and then to work with the limitations or strengths of the presenters to make them effective trainers.
Great. All right. Well, thank you both. And thank you for setting any of those notes along. And Leanne and I are going to have a couple questions for you. And we're going to ask you to do this. Thank you for those notes. My emails over here popping. So I'll get those to you by the weekend. We want to ask you a couple questions, and just go to your chat box and put answers down. Any themes that emerged, key terms that you heard. Just send us a message.
Yeah, Michael, I'm really curious if what they've heard in the last hour and a half has really impacted the way they want to go back and share with their full team. And see, I love that influencers term, to see if there's somebody else they need to bring to the table to start talking about that as they design, currently, but also going into next year.
Yep. That's it. There's some key terms coming up, and influencers hit it. You people have taken terms that you're grabbing. Cool.
Cool. There's our collaboration.
Yep. A lot of sharing going on, a lot of collaboration. You're bringing back the terms that we've heard along the way. Resources from the broader pool. I really I'm now falling out of role as facilitator, this best practices, that there could be an opportunity as when Brad was talking, for this group to continue with best practices now and again, cross communication. Those 3 C's keep coming up.
They keep coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us are smarter than just one of us. I like that too.
Yes. Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Let's bring this train into the station. We hope that these 2 sessions have really encouraged you, given you some refinement to some actions you can take, and most importantly, given you some tools, some approaches, some resources, and some people that you can connect with that can help you in your work in your district. It's all about reimagining, taking this material and taking it home. Thumbs up if you feel you've gained some ideas or insights or an idea to tap into along the way. What do you think? What do you folks have there? Yep. Okay, cool. Then we've met our number 1 goal. The other is we will send, not only will I send this material out to you by the end of this weekend at the latest, Leanne and I will also be sending out via Rosemary, probably, because you're our prime communicator, and thank you for that, Rosemary, a survey on this last 2 sessions to give us some specific feedback. Let's take just a minute and look at the next 2 sessions in our seminar. November 12th, that is next week, and that is during our Institute, Best Practices for Virtual Training, and then the Governor line on the 30th. So Brad and Rosemary, do you have any comments you want to make regarding those 2 trainings that are coming up for us?
Sure. Let me start with the one on the 12th. So from 2 to 4 o'clock, we will be hearing from, primarily, I'm just going to be getting out of the way of the presentation, because in essence, this will be Sarah Remian speaking about adult learning and how we can learn best in this virtual environment. And then our Chief Communications Officer, David Alexander, will share a few things that I think might be different than what you may have used. And I think some of you may have actually already used it, but tools and different ways that you can use Zoom to help facilitate keeping people's attention, if you will. Keep in mind that I will be sending you out the email this time, not Rosemary. I will send it out to you, and I'll give you a reminder 24 hours in advance. It will be during the day because we are fitting into the Institute as part of the process, but we look forward to a rather engaging process with you. So we'll see you at that point. Rosemary?
I don't have much to say. Let's talk about, though, the understanding the role and benefit of district trainers on the 30th. We have yet to design that. I mean, really, it's a month away. Hey, we got tons of time. But I think that today, almost more than any other day, there were insights about that relationship between the district trainer and the governor line, and the awareness on both sides of that picture, and especially with regard to communication and some of that. So I will be making contact, or Brad and I will be making contact with Tim Mobley, who's in charge of education for Gets and Nats, to find out what the teams might be planning to communicate at Gets and Nats about the role of the district trainer. And what I learn, I will make sure you know as well.
Great. Well,
I just
thank
wanted
you.
to- Michael, before you go, our goal in that session is to help the governor line understand the value that a district trainer can provide, and to help them to recognize that if they can properly engage and partner with a trainer, it helps all other aspects. It's not a threat, and it's not just a purely executional responsibility. It is an asset that can be used. And so Rosemary was being a bit facetious. We have a month. We consciously wanted to wait until we had gone through all this with you so we could fairly represent the collective wisdom of you to them. And I doubt the district governor is going to change. Perhaps even the DGE, that ship might have already left the dock, but reaching the DGN so that all of a sudden there's a different way of doing it. And a few of you being DGNDs, we're going to expect spectacular relationships between you and your district trainer when the time comes. And we know who you are. We recorded it. Anyway, Michael.
Great. Thank you. I just want to say, friends, leaders, you rock. Get out there and enjoy the week. We'll see you on November 12th. Thank you, facilitators, Bill, panelists, recorders, and above all, you, our training leaders. The final quote for tonight is heartening for those of us in service. It's taking actions to create value for someone else. So be well, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Good night, all.
Night.
Good night, everybody.